New video shows the moments the world's most powerful rocket exploded in the skies Thursday evening, met with awe, then fear below. Pieces of the SpaceX Starship on its 7th test flight rained down across the islands of Turks and Caicos, just east of Cuba. Reynaldo Rivera was playing and says was a close call.
I heard the explosion. Something flew over my head, and it was a piece of the rocket. It feels like a little hot, like if it just came out of the oven.
Now, remnants of man's biggest dreams for the stars are washing up on the sands.
So I went on a morning walk in Turks and Caicos and found pieces of Starship 7.
Island residents collecting debris by the bagful.
It was just along the beach what I picked up. 8 pounds of stuff this morning. If you're telling me it's hazardous, don't touch it, what does that mean for the coral reefs that are in the ocean and that stuff is sitting on it?
Booster coming in.
Elon Musk has captained SpaceX to take big wins, like this feat of engineering, at big risks that can come at a cost. Starship now grounded while the FAA oversees a new SpaceX-led investigation into Thursday's mishap, while Musk fights for approval to launch the rocket 25 times a year.
If this was to happen again, how do you make sure that you don't pollute the Earth? This is our planet, and to me, that's just more important.
Marissa Parra, NBC News.
1 minute and counting. At this point, the Falcon 9 is in startup. Normally, right about now is when the SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch. Again, because SpaceX is not putting out their own audio or video, we're not hearing those call-outs. "30 seconds and counting. And here we go. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 13-1 mission. The Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Now 46 seconds into flight. Again, because SpaceX, for whatever reason, not providing live pictures of the Falcon 9 rocket, and given the cloud cover here, unfortunately the Falcon 9 has gone into the clouds. We'll continue to track the mission milestones, though, as we continue on for this first phase of flight. Falcon 9 will be throttling down its engines, getting ready to pass through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. At T plus 1 minute 30 seconds into flight. In the next few seconds, SpaceX will be conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage in preparation for its ignition. Now T plus 2 minutes into flight. Coming up on a few different events in fairly rapid succession. We'll have first stage main engine cutoff in T plus 2 minutes 25 seconds. It'll be followed by stage separation and then the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine. At this point, we've got MECO, stage separation.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
Now T plus 3 minutes, 18 seconds and counting. Fairing deployment here in just a moment.
Fairing separation confirmed.
No onboard camera views of fairing separation, but you did hear that call out from SpaceX. Unclear what may have happened to their broadcast initially, but it has now reappeared midway into the flight. We're now at T plus 3 minutes, 52 seconds and counting. Next milestone set to begin is coming up at T plus 5 minutes and 59 seconds with the start of the first stage entry burn. That burn lasting about 28 seconds in total.
Nominal trajectories.
Now T plus 4 minutes, 46 seconds and counting. Going out in a little bit of a speculation limb here, but as you noted earlier in the broadcast, there are 21 Starlink satellites on board this particular Falcon 9 flight. Those who were with us for the previous launch attempt from out at Vandenberg will note that there were 27 V2 mini Starlink satellites on board that particular Falcon 9 rocket that was getting ready to launch. However, errant plane in the area scrubbed that launch attempt on Sunday. That being said, SpaceX has appeared to begun flying its optimized Starlink V2 mini satellites, which are considerably lighter than the previous version of the Starlink V2 minis. So we're approaching the 6-minute mark. Noteworthy that we have not seen any upper stage views of the Falcon 9 rocket at this point, which, given previous launch patterns, could suggest, and I put a giant asterisk next to could, but it could suggest that this flight may also contain some Starshield satellites, which of course are the government variant of the Starlink satellite and proprietary for the government.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Good start of the entry burn. This burn lasting about 28 seconds in total. Also worth noting some of the other things that are absent from the SpaceX feed. You'll notice there is no well, actually, now that I say that, there now is telemetry that is at the bottom of the screen.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Absent. Well, the timeline, sorry, not telemetry. You'll notice that is absent from both the left and the right-hand side of your screen. The left is where we normally see the telemetry for the first stage. On the right-hand side in the bottom
Stage
corner.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Speaking of the second stage, is where we will see normally the telemetry for the second stage. Also, just a quick bit of housekeeping since wasn't able to address this earlier. You'll notice that the clock in the upper right-hand corner of the screen ours different from what you're seeing in the SpaceX feed. It's because ours has been in real time. What's coming in from SpaceX is on a slight delay.
Stage 1 transonic.
Falcon 9 first stage booster now traveling below the speed of sound. Again, not seeing any telemetry data being provided by SpaceX, which is normally the case. Coming upon the start of the landing burn. To begin here in just a few seconds per the SpaceX clock.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Ignition of just one
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Engine there on the booster stage. Drone ship views should be coming up shortly.
Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And for an 8th time, a good landing of that first stage booster. And again, no upper stage views, quite conspicuous. Going instead to Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. And someone waving in the background, actually a few people waving in the background there on the SpaceX broadcast. Again, no mention from SpaceX heading into this mission that there were, in fact, Starshield satellites on board this mission. I'll say, given the peculiarness of this and no mention ahead of time, this mission does feel very much like, I believe it was the NROL 126 flight, where there were 20 Starlink satellites on board and an undisclosed number of Starshield satellites. This may be the inverse of that, where this is being advertised as a dedicated Starlink launch, when in fact there may be some number of Starshield satellites on board as well. To put this in some greater context of Starlink missions that we've covered in the past, of the most recent flights from Cape Canaveral, when there have been just Starlink satellites, the last time we saw a batch of just 21 fly as the actual total number of Starlink satellites was when there were 13 that had the direct-to-cell capability on board. From SpaceX, there has been no mention of direct-to-cell being a part of this particular shell for the Starlink constellation, this 13-1 group. Also, no mention of that being a part of this particular mission. Typically, if a group of Starlink satellites from the Cape will launch, even in the older, heavier version of the Starlink V2 mini satellites, there would be 24 on board, is the most we've seen from previous full Falcon flights. So given that they are apparently transitioning to the optimized V2 mini, which are lighter and can fit, according to SpaceX, up to 29 of these optimized V2 minis on board, the fact that they only noted 21 were flying here suggests that there may be some additional satellites on board that, for some reason, for some customer, were decided not to disclose. So keep your eyes peeled for any updates on social channels from groups like the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, or from SpaceX, or potentially from the U.S. Space Force, for any further updates on what additional satellites may have been on board this particular Falcon 9 flight. Post-satellite deployment, there would be a cataloging of the total number of objects deployed from any particular rocket launch. While not disclosing what they are, it will give us a complete cataloging of how many satellites were on this mission. So if the number of Starlinks being 21, that number remains static, we should get some additional information in the coming hours or day or so as to the full deployment here. So we may not get an answer to what all was on this flight for just a little bit, but that's where we currently stand at this point in time. As we begin to wind down what has been an interestingly more dynamic Starlink mission than I think any of us were expecting at the outset. We'll go to our mission stats in just a moment, but first want to thank a few folks for their support of our coverage tonight. Our thanks to channel member Nelson Reyes for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Appreciate that generosity, Nelson. To our 5 newest channel members, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Toby Wilby, another channel member with a very generous $20 super chat and some kind words saying, "Say it, Will is the best announcer ever." Appreciate the sentiment. I will very humbly disagree. I will not brag on myself. But thank you. Cindy Kirkman with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Cindy. Captain Action marking 1 month with us as a channel member. Appreciate you sticking with us, Captain Action. Says, thank you, Will Robinson. It's Astro Kid joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard, Astro Kid. We're glad to have you with us. And our moderator, Callisti Lee, marking 16 months with us as a channel member at the launch director level. Says, thanks, Will, and all of Spaceflight Now. Awesome job as always. Hit that like button, all. And yes, for those who are not able to be with us for the live rendition of the coverage, hitting the like button still helps, as it will allow folks to find this as a launch replay in the future. Turning now to our mission stats as they currently stand. This was the 8th Falcon flight for the Falcon 9 booster B1083. This was the 426th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 9th Falcon 9 launch of 2025, the 370th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This is SpaceX's 9th orbital launch of the year so far, the 134th orbital launch within the last 365 days. This was the 101st orbital launch for SpaceX from Pad 39A, and the 195th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's where the bar chart currently stands for SpaceX flights so far on the year. Moving on to some recovery stats, this was the 94th landing on the drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas. The 318th SpaceX drone ship landing, and the 399th overall SpaceX booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 8th orbital launch from Florida this year, the 10th from U.S. soil, the 10th from U.S. Rocket Company, and the 14th overall launch attempt from around the world. So far, 0 launch failures, albeit, of course, a secondary objective from Blue Origin was to land its first stage booster on its landing vessel, Jacqueline. Was unsuccessful in that, but did succeed in getting its payload to the correct orbit. Here's where the pie chart now stands on this still very young 2025. With a strong back going up here at Path 39A, that's going to go ahead and wrap things up for us. Look for Starlink satellite deployment around T+1 hour, 5 minutes, and some change. And of course, because SpaceX scrubbed the launch attempt of its Starlink 11-8 mission from out of Vandenberg Space Force Base. We have that as our next launch coming up here tomorrow morning. Looking for a liftoff there at 7:24 a.m. Pacific, 10:24 a.m. Eastern, 15:24 UTC. We'll have live coverage here on the YouTube channel beginning about 30 minutes prior to the liftoff of that Falcon 9 rocket over on the West Coast. Want to thank our photographer, Adam Bernstein, for helping to track the Falcon 9 tonight and for doing some still photography as well. Our thanks to moderators Callistia Lee, Aussie Space Girl, and Astro Joe for helping out in the live chat. Thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast. Most importantly, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from so far in tonight's show. We appreciate your support and your interest, and we look forward to welcoming you back with more live launch coverage as the week rolls on. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.